Is your graphic designer awesome? Of course they are. But sometimes there's a few red flags that pop up every now and then, and you want to know that you're getting your money's worth out of your designer. So let's look at 10 bad signs to spot and 10 good things to spot in a graphic designer. My name is Ian Burr, and you're watching Design. Okay, so is your graphic designer awesome? Well, there's good signs to look out for, and unfortunately, there's bad signs to look out for. So let's look at the 10 bad signs first. And by the way, this is no excuse to come down hard on your designer. This is actually a tool to help you, to encourage you to work well with your designer in the future. Number 1, a designer that is unable to take criticism or takes offense at criticism might show a sign of immaturity or maybe even insecurity. As a business owner, you just need to get the job done, and it's about working well together. So maybe pull your designer aside and say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to break your heart. I'm not trying to crush your spirits. I just want this design to work well. Let's work together on this. Number 2, your designer prioritizes form over function. Now, in my other video that I made called What is Graphic Design, I quoted Steve Jobs by saying, design is not how it looks or how it feels. Design is how it works. And that is absolutely right. And if your designer is more concerned about the artwork than the intended message that it's meant to deliver, you might want to pull them aside and just say, listen here, the artwork's great. Let's keep that up, but let's try and get this message through with this awesome artwork or something like that. Number 3, the intended message is unclear. So this obviously spills over from number 2. So you need to know where the emphasis is in this design. So say you've asked your designer to design a poster, and it's a fantastic poster, but you're not quite sure where the emphasis is. Is it on the date? Is it on the venue? Is it on the artwork itself? The intended message needs to be clear in a design. Number 4, color palettes that don't work. Okay, so inexperienced designers will often use a lot of colors, too many colors in a design, or sometimes they'll use colors that contrast poorly, or maybe even colors that don't even work well with your brand. And you might need to design a style guide, and that'll be an upcoming video soon. A good graphic designer doesn't use more than a few colors at a time. So if your designer is using color palettes that don't work, or maybe in my particular case, I'm a colorblind graphic designer. I'm not totally colorblind, but I struggle to see color. But what helps me out a lot is the hex values, and there's many tools that I have at my disposal to make sure that I see the right colors when designing stuff. Number 5, poor use of typography. Like I said in my other video, typography is kind of like dressing for the occasion. If you're going mountain climbing, you're not going to wear a tuxedo and fancy shoes. You're going to dress appropriately. And in the same way, using the right font for a design is the same as that. You need to make sure that your font enhances the message that the design is communicating. If your designer is using a lot of fonts or the wrong kinds of fonts, maybe just sit down with them and say, listen here, these fonts aren't working. Let's explore some other options and fine tune it from there. Number 6, a designer that is careless with copy kind of shows a lack of interest because as a business owner, you already don't have time. You have 100 things that you need to take care of. And sometimes there will be spelling mistakes. There will be grammatical errors. Sometimes a designer is too afraid to correct what you've given them. So maybe if that's the case, maybe just pull them aside and say, listen, what's the story here? I've given this to you and I hope you can spot the errors, and I'm giving you free range to correct and modify and simplify things as they come along. Number 7, a designer that shows a lack of input is a designer that doesn't offer up their own ideas. You want someone that's engaged with your business, engaged with your vision, engaged with your business strategy. So if they're showing a lack of input, maybe pull them aside and ask them, where their thoughts are, where their heart is at. Maybe they've got other things on their mind, and maybe it's not you personally at all. So maybe check that out and see why they are having a lack of input. Number 8, a designer that doesn't ask questions shows very little interest in your business. And this kind of spills over from number 7. For example, if you had to tell your designer, listen, today I need you to design me a brochure for our upcoming product launch. Go, 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 go. And he's like, okay, cool, let's do this. But he has failed to ask what dimensions you want your brochure to be, because some brochures come in many different shapes and forms. And the fact that he hasn't asked you, he will go ahead and design something and it's not what you had in mind, and it'll cause headaches further down the road, and you don't want that. You need your designer to ask questions and be more engaging. A designer whose work is too busy. Now, I'm not talking about their priority lists or their Trello board or whatever it is. I'm talking about their actual designs. Do their designs have too many shapes and colors and lines and fonts going on there? If so, this shows a little bit of immaturity or inexperience, because a real designer knows how to simplify things and minimalize designs in order to convey a clean and professional message. Number 10, and this is more if you're about to hire a designer, check out their portfolio. If it is a bit bland and one-sided and similar looking, it might show inexperience, which is fine because they can always grow, but it might also show an inability to be creative. So let's go back to the beginning now, and let's look at some good traits of a good designer. A good designer is thick-skinned. Yes, sometimes it hurts when you've poured your soul out into a design and the client comes back and says, I don't like it, let's start from the beginning. A good designer will be like, okay, like Tom Hanks says in Apollo 13, let's get it right. A good designer is punctual. Deadlines are looming all the time, and a lot of the time deadlines move around, and a good designer adapts to that very well and is always ready for moving deadlines, thus making him very punctual. A good designer is always curious. They are always developing, they are always growing their skills, they are always enhancing their talents in design, they are always keeping up to date with the latest trends. Yes, a good designer should always be curious. A good designer is creative, and I'm not just talking about in their actual designs, I'm talking about with ideas and conceptualizations that might happen in your business. A good designer can multitask, and that's something that I personally struggle with. Sometimes there are many plates that are spinning, there are many balls being juggled around, but if a designer can maintain good quality while doing all these things, then you've found a good one. A good designer communicates well, and that works both ways for you as the business owner and the designer. Are you both listening to each other? A good designer also communicates without patronizing the lingo of design, because sometimes a designer can take for granted the jargon or the terminology of certain designs. I had one client who kept referring to every graphic, every icon, every picture was a photo. And it confused me at first because he was talking about the photo needs editing, and I'm like, what photo? And I don't want to look stupid. And eventually I discovered that the client just needed to understand a bit of design lingo. So I took them through a bit of design terminology to make them understand the difference between a photo or a graphic or an icon, whatever the case is. So a good designer communicates well, and it benefits both you as the business owner and your designer. Number 7, a good graphic designer has an eye for detail. There's always little things that pop up here and there, and this comes back to those little typing errors or spelling mistakes that sometimes you don't have the time to fix. A good designer will pick these up and sort them out as the design process goes on. Number 8, a good designer is good at problem solving. I remember I had a client once who was struggling with their customers about an instruction manual they had. And where people were struggling with was there was a block of text that explained how to assemble this product, and people were finding it very ambiguous. So I suggested, in my problem-solving nature, to maybe put that paragraph into picture form, and that literally solved everything. Once people saw that they could slot piece A into slot B over here. It removed the ambiguity and people were able to understand the instructions a lot better. So yeah, a good designer is good at problem solving. Number 9, a good designer is open-minded. And what I mean by that is that a good designer will try and understand as best as they can your business world or your business vision. For example, I have a client who's very big in the ocean surf ski paddling world. And there's a whole community of paddlers out there that I need to design for. And so there's certain colors and shapes and fonts that I need to use that appeal to that target market, because I'm not a paddler myself. So I have to be very open-minded to what these people like. It might not even be my style. It might not be my cup of tea to design, but I have to be open-minded to that in order for the designs to work. A good designer has a rich portfolio. It'll show that they are versatile in many different techniques and design styles and things like that. But it might also show you that they have ideas that you never even thought of to use yet for your business, or those ideas might even be beneficial for your business. So check out their portfolio and you might even be surprised what you find there. At the end of the day, you've got to find out what benefits you and your business. If your designer is showing some of these red flags, maybe motivate them, maybe encourage them, maybe pull them aside, maybe take them for a coffee and say, listen, what's up? How can we improve in these areas? And if your designer is rocking, feel free to reward them, pat them on the back, tell them you're doing a good job, and Bob's your uncle. If you have any comments or questions, post them below. My name is Ian, and you're watching Design.